The latest battle for the town of Bakhmut has again been a focal point of Russia's war with Ukraine in recent months. The General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces reported on 19 February that Russia had lost 142,860 troops in Ukraine since the start of the full-scale invasion, including 590 in the last 24 hours. The leader of Russian mercenary group Wagner said the private army would reduce the number of fighters it has deployed in Ukraine and stop completely the practice of recruiting prisoners from Russian prisons to be sent to the front. Wagner's group says it has captured another village outside Bakhmut, as Russian forces continue a months-long assault on the eastern Ukrainian city. Ukrainian military staff said Saturday on Facebook that they had repelled attacks on Paraskovievka and elsewhere around Bakhmut. Ukraine's defense ministry did not immediately return a request for comment. For months, Wagner led attacks on Bakhmut. Although they had failed to take the city and had suffered heavy casualties, they had slowly taken town after town on the outskirts of Bakhmut, leaving the Ukrainian forces with dwindling routes of entry and exit. Wagner's latest claim of success comes amid heightened tensions with Russia's defense ministry, which the paramilitary group says has failed to supply the new ammunition. Russia has shelled 10 settlements in the Kharkiv region over the past day, February 18, which resulted in 1 civilian being killed and 2 other civilians injured. As Ukrinform reported, Oleg Sinigubov, head of the military administration of the Kharkiv region, reported this on Telegram. Vladimir Putin's long-anticipated spring offensive is underway and has left many U.S. officials unimpressed. A senior U.S. diplomat called the new attacks devastating in an embarrassing assessment of President Putin's war effort. Victoria Nuland, Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs, said of the new Russian attack, "If it is, it's very sad." The scathing remarks followed months of anticipation in the West for Russia's spring offensive in Ukraine. He highlighted the eastern city of Bakhmut, where Russia has thrown thousands of troops into the conflict but has failed to make any significant headway. In the last day, the aviation of the Ukrainian Defense Forces carried out 6 sorties on the places of concentration of manpower and military equipment of the Russian occupiers, and 1 more on the positions of their anti-aircraft missile complexes. 6 strokes less than average, and in any case, it certainly does not meet the needs of our defenders at the front. Therefore, they continue to use unmanned frontline flights. A drone from the 30th Separate Mechanized Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, named after Prince Konstantin Ostrozky, dropped a hand grenade directly into the embrasure, where the interventionists were sleeping, covered with tarpaulin. Seconds after the explosion, something moved under the tarpaulin. The 2 brigades fought their way towards Bakhmut. According to a report by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Russia has lost 3,310 tanks, 6,545 armored fighting vehicles, 5,196 vehicles and fuel tanks, 2,327 weapon systems, 469 multiple launch rocket systems, 243 air defense systems, 298 aircraft, 287 helicopters, 2,016 drones, and 18 ships. Ukraine said Saturday morning on Facebook that Russia had fired 4 Caliber missiles from the Black Sea. 2 were shot down. The Post said, no comments were made about the other 2. Meanwhile, on the second day of talks at the Munich Security Conference in Germany, European leaders showed unity in supporting Ukraine. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris said on Saturday that the U.S. has officially determined that Russia has committed crimes against humanity, systematic attacks on civilian targets in Mariupol, deportation of Ukrainian children, and evidence of torture and killing of civilians in the near future of the year-long war. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak called on Ukraine's allies to double their military support for Kyiv in the coming weeks to help with a spring counteroffensive. European efforts to provide Western-made tanks to Ukraine have stalled, raising fears that the weapons may not arrive in time to repel a Russian attack. "We need a military strategy for Ukraine to gain a decisive advantage on the battlefield to win the war," said Sunak. "Ukraine needs more artillery, armored vehicles, and air defense." Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba said that Kyiv aims to retake all territories occupied by Russian troops. Some people question whether Ukraine will be able to fully restore its territorial integrity. Kuleba said, "What's all this for if, in the end, you don't get everything that's yours?" NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said on Saturday he welcomed Sunak's proposal, which could deepen discussions about what kind of security guarantees the West would offer Ukraine as part of any settlement. Stoltenberg also weighed in on the problems Russia has had with its recent attack on Ukraine. "What we saw was heavy fighting in Bakhmut and also several other places on the front line," he said. "And we saw high Russian casualty rates. They paid a very high price for their small down payment." However, he warned that what Russia lacks in the quality of their military operations, they are trying to make up for in quantity. They have mass. Therefore, we must not underestimate Russia, he warned. Hungary and Turkey have yet to ratify the two countries' membership bids. Turkey has suggested it might agree to Finland, but not Sweden.